everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to design number 48. Today I am going to use a fun kaleidoscope technique with some folded paper. And what I've first done is I've cut some shapes here with my silhouette onto some craft cardstock. And now I'm cutting down some 1-inch strips of patterned paper. And I'm going to use these strips of patterned paper to create a bit of a folded kaleidoscope in the inside of that cutout shape. Now I'm using a leaf shape for fall because I'm going to make a set of thank you cards, but you could definitely do this with any sort of die, even just a punch, any sort of shape you want to do. It can be really simple or it can be more intricate like these. Now to do the technique, you get started by folding those 1-inch strips of paper lengthwise, so they are in half. You could cut 1/2-inch strips, although this technique, when I tested it out, looked a little better with that extra dimension and texture, so that's why I do suggest folding them. And you just simply lay them around the outer edge of your cutout shape. So if you had a circle, you would obviously go ahead and run that around the edge of the circle, trying to create that kaleidoscope effect. So for me, I'm doing all the different edges of this leaf shape. This is the more simple of the 3 leaves, so I started with this one just to see how it would look. And you can see here that I have all those pretty strips on the inside of my leaf. Now, what I want to do later is put these on a card front. So I'm actually going to use some foam adhesive here, and I'm going to double it up to make it kind of the same height as all that paper texture from the folded shape. And I'm going to just add that all around the back there, as well as over top of those folded strips to hold down the folded strips, and obviously to have enough adhesive to put on my card front. It's a lot of adhesive, but it's going to help me put that on the front later on too. So I'm going to repeat this thing here again on the second leaf shape. This one's just slightly more complicated of a leaf shape, has a few more petals. So I'm going to go ahead and again, I'm using a bit of a V shape to get started. So I have a bit of a diamond pattern when I'm done. And it's okay if it overhangs the actual cut out part of the cardstock if you have it, because you can always trim it off later. As you add your second layers, third layers, etc., just add a little bit more adhesive along the already stuck down adhered papers, and that will help you kind of line those pieces up evenly inside. So what you want to do is, again, put a lot of adhesive around the outside edge of that shape, fold your paper, and then just work your way around. Now this shape is a little bit more complicated. You can see it has a lot of different points and connections, so I'm going to start really small with small pieces and work my way around. I intended to make it look almost like a circle, but I ended up making it look a little more square than I wanted. But this technique definitely is easy. You just need to give it a little bit of try, depending on the shape you want to use and how you want it to look in the center. I do like how this one turned out though, so I'm happy with the result. Depending on how complicated your shape is that you're using, you may need more strips. For example, in that first green leaf, I only used 2 strips of paper, whereas with this kind of purpley pink color, I am going to use almost 3 strips of the 1-inch strip paper to get my design. I did leave a little gap inside each of the leaves here, just to have some of the background paper on the card showing through, but you could definitely go ahead and fill in the whole design. You don't need to leave a gap space like I did. So there's my maple leaf, all pretty and ready to go. I've got foam on the back of all 3. It looks so messy, but no one's going to be able to tell later. And I'm going to go ahead and use those shapes to create some thank you cards. So I've just chosen some really fairly neutral background papers from this Pebbles collection. It's really, really super pretty. And this is called Bloom and Grow by Jen Hadfield. And so I've chosen 3 of the more neutral colors backgrounds. I'm going to add those to the front of a card base really, really quickly. And then each of those folded kaleidoscope leaves that I created are going to go onto the front of each of these cards. I am going to trim off really quickly the card base, any of that extra pattern paper, just to make sure they're all nice and clean on the edges. And then I'm going to go ahead and just take my squares and add them onto the front of each of the cards. I do want this to be a bit of a set, so it's kind of nice that all the colors go together. It's a nice neutral palette for fall too, which I really like. All right, so I'm going to put my last square down. I realize there's a bit of a gap on this middle card, so I'm going to add just a little extra foam to get that to hold nicely. And then I decided to break out some of my embellishments. So the first thing I'm going to do is look for some of these sentiments here in this embellishment pack. There's some really pretty words and sentiments, little tags that I think will be great to use on here. I'm trying to look for all the things that are like grateful, thankful, something that I can use for thank you cards, but nothing too busy. Now that folded technique is pretty, it's pretty simple, but it is going to be a lot of texture on your project. So you want to stick with the more clean design for the rest of your cards. So I did find this really cool ephemera piece that has a sentiment on it, a thank you sentiment. So I'm going to use that on my green leaf. A really simple one here for the top of my card here. It says grateful, add a couple staples because that's always a nice little touch. And then I'm trying to decide with this one here what I wanted to use. I did really like those scripty words for that there, but because of that bottom little stick on the leaf, it was tricking me up a little bit. So I was trying to decide which piece to use. So I kind of tried a few different things, and you'll see I think I switched it up again in the end anyway. I am going to just layer some of these foam stickers as well as the ephemera. I did like that thank you foam sticker, much nicer. And the pink kind of went with that purpley pink flower. And yes, I am going to fussy cut some tiny little flowers off of this pattern paper. I really just feel like some of these delicate flowers are they're a little finicky to fussy cut, but just the fragileness of them I think will be really pretty on the back of some of these cards, just to add a delicate little, oomph to where you might need some little leaves or flowers to go with your design. So I'm just going to add some black ink to my cards really quickly, some sprinkles, while I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut. That will give those some time to dry. And then I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut a couple of the different sprigs. And the good thing is when you make a card set, it's always nice to have a tying element between all of the cards in the card set. So these fussy cut elements will definitely be that element that is through all three of the cards. That will kind of bring a little bit of symmetry to all of them together. Even though the cards will look different, they will have that same folded technique as well as a few touches of these fussy cut elements. Now these are pretty finicky, so if you're not a fan of really small cutouts, you could definitely use a punch or a die. If you have a silhouette or a Cricut, you could definitely cut something like this out. But it's nice to have kind of these little elements that hang off little parts of the card to kind of not have such a graphic edge to that craft cardstock there that I have the original kind of leaves cut out of. I just think I love fussy cutting. You guys, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that. And I think it's just like a really easy touch. So a few little flowers here and some leaves there, and you can see that it goes really well with the overall design. And helps bring a few little points of color too, because the cards itself right now are a little bit monochromatic to some extent. So it is helping bring a few little extra pieces of color in. All right, one last little fussy cut piece for that middle card. I'm going to add this little like leafy sprig there so that it kind of goes up and above my sentiment just to fill in that top area of the card. And then I think we're pretty close to having these done. So here's how those things turned out. I did add some gems just to add a little bit of sparkle to the cards. I really love this technique. I'm going to try it on a layout for sure. Just have to define the right one. I think this would look good on a Christmas page, with ornaments, with this whole technique filled in the middle. Really, honestly, really fun and pretty easy to do. You don't have to make a strong folded edge, so don't worry about a bone folder and all of that. You can really just fold these quite easily on your own. And really a fun, different way of doing something with just some paper. I hope you've enjoyed this design number 48. Can you believe it's been 4 years I've done these videos? I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.